Hi there, Mike Hall here, CEO of Just Collecting and Paul Fraser Collectibles. Now, a question I'm sometimes asked is who the heck collects stamps anyway? And quite often, the answer to that question surprises people. Some of the names on the list you wouldn't expect to see of people that either collect stamps today that are famous or have collected stamps throughout history. So, today, what I'd like to do is to share with you what we think is our top 10 stamp collectors. So let's take a look. So firstly, let's look at some famous people who have collected stamps. There are more famous people throughout history than you might think who are known to have collected stamps. So at number 10 we have John Lennon. Surely no one could argue that John Lennon wasn't cool. Now John Lennon collected stamps as a boy, and we know this for a fact because we did actually sell his boyhood stamp collection to the Smithsonian National Postal Museum back in 2005. It's also, the stamp album itself has the earliest known examples of John Lennon writing his name, possibly practicing his autograph for the future, which appears twice on the front of the album along with his address and the number of stamps in the album. The collection today is still on display at the museum in Washington, D.C. At number 9 we have Maria Sharapova. Stamp collecting is not a sexist hobby. Ironically, there was a time in the past when more women than men collected stamps. Based on our own customer demographics, though, it's clearly more of a male pastime today. But the 5 times Grand Slam tennis champion Maria Sharapova admitted to being an avid stamp collector as a child. The attention to detail, organisation and focus on the minutiae would have served her well, as some of these disciplines would have applied to her successful tennis career. At number 8, it's Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin, the comic actor from the silent movies and the birth of Hollywood, was also known to be a passionate stamp collector throughout his life. I'm sure it would have amused him now to find out that he's ended up appearing on the stamps he loves so much, as he's since appeared on a number of commemorative issues since his death. Next, we move on to some of the wealthiest people who are on the rich list that are known to be stamp collectors. There is an interesting correlation between the most successful people and the collecting instinct. Also, rare stamps have been used by the uber wealthy throughout history as a store of wealth, providing an investment in a rare and portable tangible asset. At number 7 we have Bill Gross. The billionaire Bill Gross was founder of PIMCO investment firm and is probably the most famous modern day stamp collector. He famously donated $10 million to the Smithsonian National Postal Museum, and trust me, that's somewhere you should really visit if you're ever allowed to again, even if you're not interested in stamps, because it truly is one of the best museums in the world. Now, Bill Gross is one of just 3 collectors who managed to complete a collection of all 19th century US stamps, and he did this by trading a block of inverted Jenny airmail stamps for one of the 2 existing 1-cent 1868 Z Grill stamps. At number 6 we have Michael Dell. You may have heard of Michael Dell, the founder of Dell Computers. At the age of 12 he got his first job washing dishes. At that time, he just wanted enough money to fund his stamp collection, he went on record as saying. Now you roll forward another 12 years to 1992, and he became the youngest CEO ever to lead a company in the Fortune 500. By 1999, he was the 5th richest person in the US. At number 5, we have Warren Buffett with a net worth of over $100 billion, and he's considered the best investor of all time. He dabbled in trading stamps in his early days. He's also revealed in many interviews how he loves classic American stamps. He's also claimed that his collection of British stamps is proving to be a sound investment. It was also rumoured that he was a bidder for the world's most valuable stamp, the British Guiana 1-cent magenta, which sold in auction at Sotheby's in 2014 for $9.5 million. We'll find out next month because the same stamps back up at auction what it sells for this time, with the new estimate being $15 million. We now move on to some famous politicians who have collected stamps. Interestingly, quite a number of seriously powerful people in history have enjoyed stamp collecting. I imagine the solace and peace of mind from ordering their stamps was a welcome relief from the constant stress and responsibilities of their role in life. So at number 4, we have President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, who was known to be a passionate philatelist and was also considered a stamp expert. During his presidency, he always ensured he had time each day to spend with his stamps. He famously once said, "I owe my life to my hobbies, especially stamp collecting." As a polio-stricken adult, his collecting gave him a lot of relief. Because of the published photographs of the president working on his collection, he was responsible for a huge surge of interest in stamp collecting in the 1930s during the Great Depression. After his death in 1945, his family sold his collection through Harmer Auction in 1946, which included US die proofs, full sheets, covers, and stamps from all over the world. At number 3, we have another famous US president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, who also collected stamps in his youth. His collection is in the Spelman Museum in Weston, Massachusetts, if you're interested in seeing what he collected. He's also accountable for another famous quote from an American president promoting the hobby. "The stamps of the world are powerful object lessons in the eternal hunger of men for knowledge and news about their fellow men. They are a pictorial history of all arts and sciences and human progress since the earliest civilizations. I couldn't put it better myself." We now move on to find out why stamp collecting is called the king of hobbies. Surprisingly, there is a large list of kings and queens from around the world known to have been avid stamp collectors. An element of this will of course be vanity, because in some cases they would actually be collecting their own image on stamps as the reign of their respective countries. So let's take a look at 2 contrasting famous royal collectors. At number 2, we have King Carol II of Romania, who reigned between 1893 and 1953. He was a controversial character both in his personal life and also for his known authoritarian style on the throne. He was twice forced into exile, the second time in part because he wasn't considered sympathetic to Hitler's war. But he was also a keen philatelist with a particular interest in stamp rarities. His collection even included the rare 4D 1854 inverted frame stamp of Western Australia. It's believed that the sale of his substantial stamp collection was enough to fund much of his life in exile in Spain. I think this is another interesting example of how rare stamps can be such a valuable commodity, as they can be traded anywhere in the world and are all portable. Now, King Carol II participated in the 1950 London International Stamp Exhibition's Court of Honour, where his exhibit of the 1858 circular-shaped stamps of Moldavia, Romania now, was placed next to the British colonies exhibited by King George VI of England. And finally, we have our number 1, Queen Elizabeth II, our current longest reigning queen in the UK. The Royal Philatelic Collection is believed to be the most valuable collection of stamps in the world, and it's also the most comprehensive collection of stamps from the British Commonwealth and Empire. Now, the Queen inherited the collection from her grandfather, King George V, who was known as the King of Stamps, such was his passion for the hobby. As the Queen owns the collection personally, bear in mind that most of her other assets belong to the state, it is reputably the Queen's most valuable asset, showing just how rare stamps can prove such an effective strategy for building long-term wealth. I hope you found this little insight into how diverse a stamp collector actually is quite interesting. It's also interesting, just how many people have actually seen stamps as an investment throughout history. Now, you're never ever going to get money managers recommending this, but it's never stopped some of the wealthiest people in the world from using stamps to make money over the long term. And the thing about stamp collecting is that it brings a huge amount of enjoyment and fulfillment. I would actually say that my knowledge of history and geography would be a fraction of what it actually is if it wasn't for the fact that I've studied these little pieces of paper for most of my career. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. Thank you very much. Goodbye.